Okay, what's up, guys? Live streaming from an hacker house in Denver. We are live. Welcome to this AI agent intelligence. So we're exploring everything kind of AI agent in Web3. And this time we have a really special episode. We have Shaw here. Shaw, welcome to the live stream. It's an honor to have you here. You want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Shaw. I created a thing called ELIZA and a DAO formerly known as AI16Z. Primarily, I'm a programmer. And yeah, so my day's coding right now.
Nice, super excited, super exciting. Look, yeah, for the people that doesn't know me, I'm Francesco. I'm dev Relling for MetaMask, and I'm into agent kind of like since quite a long time. I love building, I love advocating for the space, and I think Eliza is doing an amazing job around building frameworks for future AI agents. And I think like this episode is all about kind of like what do you think ecosystem, like you're not just a thought leader in the space, but you are very hands-on and you actually like being cooking yourself, and this is the best things that we want to hear from a builder. And let's start us a little bit like, how kind of like, what was the main pain point that you see around kind of like agency from the start, and what you saw developer having, and what kind of like sparkled the interest around building a framework?
Yeah, I like to think of like agents as kind of a primitive that we can use to build a new kind of application. And I think that like a lot of times when we talk about agents, what we're talking about is just like, oh, I used some AI in a script and it like ran on some data. Or I made a thing like a chatbot. And like, yeah, that's cool. That's somewhat agentic. That's like a spectrum. But I like the things that are very like I could slot this in to do what a human does or fit in with a human team and it's able to perform like a task within that team. And what I would call, useful work, not just yapping on Twitter, but actually like moving things from point A to point B or performing some like useful task at scale. Um, and I like there are a lot of agent frameworks, and there's a lot of people who have been doing agents for a while. But I felt like there was a gap in this idea of social agents where I could just really easily and frictionlessly invite agents to come to where I am, to come to my Discord, my Telegram, my Slack, my Twitter, and participate in those ongoing engagements with me. And also then to say like, well, it's not just here in this one place, but if it knows my Discord and I tell it my Telegram, then it can like connect me and understand that the Shaw on Discord is the Shaw on Telegram. And so it's just like a lot like of really challenging problems to me in there. That require like something more like a complex framework that can handle quite a lot of complex state. And it's got to be a mix of like connecting to these platforms, managing different models, managing memory and all these systems.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's kind of why I set out to build ELIZA. The last thing is like most of the space is built in Python, and
Mhm.
Python is a really is a great scripting language. It's usually used for like scripting machine learning and stuff like that in kind of the modern era. But I felt like what we were doing was more of a shift in the web and represented more of like a shift from applications and websites onto social
Mhm.
applications and social media. And so I wanted to build it in TypeScript where we can engage more of the web developer community. And I think that's a big part of also like a lot of Web3 developers are familiar with Node.js and the
Yeah.
TypeScript
Yeah.
ecosystem as well.
Yeah, I agree on the
So,
Python. I
yeah.
really agree on the Python side because I see also like people, especially coming from Web 2, they automatically kind of like set up on Python Rails, and they were actually looking on something like that. So I really like the kind of the framework decision is something super important. And I think also for the people that know me, like I'm a big fan of like or pre-built CLI testing kits, kind of like spin off the apps that you can actually take and recreate. And I think having a framework is also like accelerate the wall to developer kind of journey, right? And I think also that's something that. Tell me a little bit like also what like building this obviously is not just a V1. Like you've been cooking since a long time. What were the kind of like lesson learned during the way developing the framework? Was the integration the kind of the biggest challenge? What was kind of like the things that you want to kind of like mention to the builders out there?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple of things. One thing that I really learned is that the enemy of all software programming is complexity. And there's a lot of things that we could do that are fancy, or that are more like decoupled or more abstracted, but I've always tried to really shy away from anything that made the flow of data through the system, like state flow and all that, very non-obvious, and just try to keep it as simple as possible. I think that like there's a lot of complex nomenclature inside of agents that I've seen. Like, like we have the agent and the executor, which pulls on the tasks, and it starts to
Mhm.
get very abstract very quickly. And I think that a lot of developers just quickly feel like, wow, there's so much new language. There's so much that I have to like learn learn and do it this way. And I found that
Mm,
usually those systems also just don't give that much capability. Like it's not really worth learning all of
yeah.
this stuff. So the first thing for me is really keep it simple. There's this like Grug
Mhm.
Brain developer manifesto. I think it's
Mhm.
grug.dev or grugbrain.dev.
Oh yeah,
That's one
yeah,
of my
I
favorites where
like
it's
it.
just like, look, if you want to get shiny rock, then make complexity. But if you want to survive,
Mm.
complexity demons, got to fight them.
Yeah,
So that was like the first thing is just keep it
yeah.
really simple. And really, really try to think through every abstraction. Like, am I gonna need this? Do I really want this? Early on, I went on a lot more side quests to sort of develop things I thought I would need. And then when I actually went to implement them inside of like a production agent, I'd be like, well, that's really not exactly how I wanted it to be. So I think that
Yeah.
anyone building in this space, if you're developing a framework especially, you have to
Mm.
dogfood it. You have to build an agent alongside the framework, and the framework has to really
Yeah.
like be there to fit your use case. And I try to build like two of everything. Like
Hmm.
like I want to support for the new version like two database adapters, two wallets, two clients. That way I know that it's sufficiently abstracted and that I haven't hard coded anything
Hmm.
into like one of them. But I'm not like
Hmm.
having to sit there and support like 10 of everything while I do that development. And once we get this to a place and like, okay, this is the pattern. Now let's go take all of like our old plugins or our old way of doing things and let's kind of make it this new thing. So those are a few of the
Makes
lessons
sense.
learned.
Yeah, makes sense. No, it's actually good, and I'm always like asking exactly that point because developer onboarding or mostly like DevX was always kind of a challenge, and you're going through like always like docs revision, kind of could be like hackathon around frameworks, and I think like you guys been a very good V1 from the start. So also like I was wondering about a little bit like how you guys nail down exactly on that, but I think also it's something that you've been developing also within yourself, building an agent within your framework. So it's something actually is similar to an auto tune. So I think that was super interesting. So speaking specifically around the framework level, like are any specific trends that you see? Because I don't know how many right now forks have been happening or how many kind of AI agents pre-built with Eliza are going through the ecosystem. But is there any specific trends that you see around kind of AI agent development?
Well, I mean, there are so many trends that I see. Some of them I think
Yeah.
are wiser than others. Um, I
Hmm.
think that the biggest thing that I see that's missing is just more like useful agents that I can just hire and pull into my stuff. And the most like effective like agent experiences are still on websites. I think of something like Grafane or something like that. And it just like to me misses the thesis of why this is interesting, which is like the trend here should be that websites are coming on to social apps. And you see this a lot in like Telegram, like you see it like Rickbot
Hmm.
and Bullex and these apps that like basically like kind of onboard you onto their Telegram bot from their website if you haven't just like invited them already. And
Hmm.
I think that this is like very like a lot of consumer behavior is like if I can do this socially and do it where I already am and feel like my chat room is my control center, then it like really changes the
Yeah.
experience. And I think it's gonna be a very different user experience all around. I'd like to see more of that. What I see a lot of is like there's a lot of people
Hmm.
building agent launchpads and platforms. I'd say like if you're
Mm.
serious in
Yep.
this space, like the expectation is you build a launchpad. And I get that. I'm not
Mm.
saying we're not building a launch pad, but I think that the value is going to come
Yep.
from actually useful agents first.
Mm.
Not from like
Agreed. Yeah.
like if it's like okay, cool, I have a launch pad, but I got no like but the rockets don't do anything, then like people can come launch rockets because it's cool, but like we actually want to get to the moon, or
Yes.
I don't know, in this analogy, we actually want them to do
Yes.
something.
Agreed.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's I think where
Yeah.
we need to go is we need to get out of like yapping slot bots on Twitter. and platforms to launch
Mm,
them, and into like useful
yeah.
agents, and then thinking about what the platform of the future is. And I don't even know if necessarily know if we
Yeah.
like I think we want things like an agent registry, agent marketplace, those kinds of things. But I think that like a lot of discovery
Mhm.
of agents could actually happen right on social. You know, you could, if I like
Yeah.
hire an agent into my Discord and then somebody else sees it, they'll probably be like, oh, that's really useful. Like I should hire that agent too. You know, so that's
Mhm.
kind of what I foresee.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, definitely, I see also like the two main kind of category of all the social agents, and I think like the emerging kind of main categories on the DeFi side, right? So kind of like DeFi, and then we will dive a little bit after on kind of like agent to agent coordination. But I really kind of like agree also on what you're saying around the frameworks. But yeah, and this is also why the reason. I mean, on the Launchpad, I also like. Agree specifically because I actually see more and more like Launchpad creators and kind of like libraries happening. The biggest problem always, that's the reason why also Modder kind of like started to exist, um, was right now we are looking also around kind of what DeFi Summer was, everybody's fork indexes. And I see at least 7 or 8 forked AI agent version of AXBT that are actually have a track record. And always like the biggest problem that we had was, hey, there is no social graph being built on agents right now, so that we can defend the rights to the agent consumer to actually understand this is the OG agent, or this is the agent that want to actually delegate permission to do things. So that was kind of like the idea behind let's build this kind of like public registry with a defined social graph so that actually agent consumer can think about that. So yeah, but that's kind of like a parenthesis. And you have been also like around for the builder side, because I like that you build the framework, but you also like you are on the trenches all the time. And my question always to you is that, do you see specific common mistakes that the builder should avoid? Is this something that, because sometimes I feel, oh, I'm just using Eliza, and then they're not thinking through about the dapps development side, because maybe there is no integration with Eliza specifically. So now I started to see platform agents built on Eliza that are providing those integrations, but I feel it's a bit also like not very relevant, right? You want to have all the integration on the framework level.
Yeah, I mean, you can build like definitely what I've seen a lot is like people building around the things that we already have that could have made their lives a lot easier if they just like built with, floated downstream instead of fighting upstream. And I think that that comes down to like we don't have a ton of tutorials and documentation. I think we're doing better than a lot of projects I've been part of, but still, there's I think a knowledge gap there. And so I think a lot of people struggle with just like, well, how do I do this thing that I'm trying to do? And I've tried to keep this pretty simple with there's like an abstraction for a provider, which like a context provider puts stuff into the model or into the agent. And there's actions like things the
Mhm.
agent can do. And then there's evaluators, which are ways that the agent can reflect on its performance, like how did I do? Or, uh,
Yeah.
every 10 messages, I should extract all the facts from this conversation or whatever you want to do. And I think that people really struggle with where that evaluator fits into their flow. So we don't see a ton of use of
Yeah.
that. And I think I see a lot of people over engineering around trying to solve, not understanding that bit, especially. Um, and then just generally
Mhm.
like I think it's a new way to think about stuff. Like, okay, I have to think about like
Mhm.
input and output. I try to tell people like it's like get and post. Like, you get the stuff that goes into the providers is the get, and the post is the actions, like the things it does. And it kind of maps down to a lot of devs. But I've definitely seen a lot of people struggle with this like kind of both new paradigm and like it's kind of an opinionated framework,
Mhm.
and there's like a way of doing things that is much easier than if you don't do things. So I think that it's the usual stuff. I think that there were a lot of abstractions that were
Mhm.
missing that now we have that make things a lot
Mhm.
easier. Like we're mapping the entire world and all the entities in it and stuff. Like if you have a Discord server,
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, well now I know what every channel is and
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of context that I think that people wanted in their social spaces that they weren't
Mhm.
getting that we're adding. So I think that
Yeah.
will help a lot. And just generally like
Yeah. That's a good
the other thing
point.
that I saw, I think
Mhm.
that I've seen as a mistake is people carrying over like some of the bad user experience of like human stuff. Like in I
Oh,
think a good
yes.
example of
Yes.
something I just fixed was like in MetaMask or most wallets, you have to switch chains. And so the
Hmm.
EVM plugin had been set up to have like a chain mode. Like the agent has to switch chains. It can't,
Hmm.
it's like one chain or the other at a given time for an action.
Yes,
And I was
a
just
good
like,
point. Yeah, similar to
yeah,
the
that's a
token.
terrible, that's terrible.
Yeah,
I would say the worst feature of
yeah,
wallets probably is the chain switching. And there's no reason why an AI can't just see all of its
yeah,
chains, all of its data all at once. So that was like something that we
yeah.
refactored,
Agree. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time that I think agency will be implemented also on the wallet level, right? You see already people interacting with well, not even with DEXs anymore, right? And I think that's actually super interesting. I was actually having this chat with a Zero X designer on how we can actually like push agency or kind of like agent pre-built frameworks inside the wallet specifically. The only thing is sometimes people it's always like an adding friction if you're not doing it natively. Like we see that sometimes with snaps that people are actually pushing extra kind of features, and for these specific people that want to have this extra feature, they will do it. If not, like is a
Yeah.
no-brainer. But actually, you said what is missing. I don't know if you want to add something. Feel free also to the and you kind of like touch on what is missing, right? Like and obviously like on the infra and the framework side, things evolved extremely quick. You've been pushing like V2. I don't know for like super quick. Like if you look at the framework kind of like level and development life cycle, like is there kind of like first you can touch on V2 and specific updates that you're the most excited about, but also like I would like to understand if there is any other gaps on the framework side that need to be filled, and you think they're like either need to be solved and pushed by developer inside Eliza, but also outside
Yeah.
of the
Um,
community.
yeah, there's a lot there. I've been working pretty furiously on V2. I mean, I streamed for like 14 hours yesterday. I've been just, I wasn't home. I've been,
I saw the live stream. Yeah, it was amazing. I said we need more people like you that actually live stream for like 12 plus hour and actually
I'm
build the
just gonna
thing.
do that for the next few weeks, as long as I don't have too many calls. I
Awesome.
before this, I was in at a hacker house in New York with like a Flashbots team and a bunch of other people, and
Nice.
I was just doing the same thing. I was just like, oh yeah, I'd love to participate more. I love these guys, but I just need to like make sure this thing works for everybody. So I pretty much just hacked all day, every day, nonstop, morning to way late at night, to try to get this thing to like where I feel okay. This is I'm just one person. I can't build the whole framework. I have a team, but it is good for me to just like sometimes say like, okay, I'm just gonna take some time and be out in front and just be creative and treat this more like not like I'm crossing tickets
Yes.
off of GitHub, but I'm really thinking about like what does this mean? I'm sculpting this clay. And I really think about it like an art form, like a sculpture, and there's gonna be bugs, but I can always bring in the team to like kind of once the form is set, we can sort of fix all the bugs and fix all the issues and stuff. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Um, we've been working on this now for a while. It was a little bit hard to get started because one of the challenges is, being a technical founder, and also having a lot of obligations outside of being technical, and having to try to run the thing and promote it and wear all the hats. And you then try and lean on people who are, like, hey, can you lead this? Can you run this thing? And it's very hard to find people to take leadership over at like the technical level. Like, okay, yes, I'm going to architect this now, especially when you've like it's all come from your head, like the way things are named, where they're placed, what the files are, what's in them. Like it's such a fundamental level. And so that was really a challenge to get the people in place to do this. And I kind of realized that if it was going to get done, I just sort of had to like put everything else
Do
aside
it
and just
yourself.
focus on this. And I think we had scheduled this meeting actually a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, dude, I got to ship,
It's all
man.
good.
um,
This is more
yeah,
important. Shipping is always priority.
and I kind of
Yeah.
realized that's definitely a big part of it is just like sitting down and shipping a lot every day and like hour per hour, probably the most useful thing I could do, even as a CEO of a labs company worth, X whatever,
Mhm.
is to just focus on making the product good. And then our only differentiator outside of like hype and name brand and blah blah blah, like the only thing that's gonna matter is like do our agents actually work well and like do they do this stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
pretty. We've
Mhm.
changed a lot of things. I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
things I'm really happy about. Added a lot of abstractions. like thinking about like, okay, if I have an action, an agent does something and then it wants to like come back to it or defer it or wait for a confirmation from the
Hmm.
user, adding this like abstraction called tasks, and then having things like, okay, I can have like an options task that if the agent asks me like, do you like the red one, the blue one, or the green one, then I can be like, I like the red one, and then the agent can kind of continue on its journey,
Mm,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Which sounds simple, but really requires a primitive. Like even like the web, the web requires like a form primitive or like input boxes. It's kind of the
Mm,
same challenges. Like what are the input boxes of agents? What are the simple paste around primitives? Um, a lot of things like that. I had sort of thought about doing something like a universal inventory system where we abstracted away all of the wallets.
hmm.
But when we actually got down to it, it just
Yeah.
made more sense to make the wallets better. Like that EVM thing. Like I just
Yeah.
removed the chain switching and made sure that all of the actions have unique names. And now it's like, oh, well, this is great. I can have like 10 wallets. It's fine, no problem. Um,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of like stuff that I'm really happy with that's coming in that's going to make it a lot better. There's a few things that we've decided not to do yet. Like I'd say that the thing that's really like to answer your question most succinctly, the thing that people are going to want to work on is probably planning. And this idea of like,
Mm,
okay, cool. I tell the agent, hey, can you do a thing for me? And it does the thing for me. Because it has an action to call, and the action is like a workflow. The action is
hmm.
actually a whole bunch of stuff, right? It's not just like a calling a tool
Hmm.
like ChatGPT does, but it's actually like, okay, I'm gonna
Hmm.
go run this entire workflow and then come back to you. And that's cool, but the workflows has to be like really human coded and tested. And where we
Mm,
obviously want the future is the agent can be like, oh, you want me to do this thing? I've never done this before, but I have all the
mm,
tools that I need. I have all the context inputs. I have all the like outputs to clients. I can call these different middleware pieces. Like, okay, I'm gonna build this plan. I'm gonna build this graph, and then I'm gonna test it
yeah.
and run it. And then if it works, I will save it, and then if I'm in a similar scenario later, I can run the same graph again. That would be like the
The optimal.
agent that actually learns. Yeah, I mean that would be AGI basically, because you could objectively like teach it anything or give it new abilities. Like, oh, you can't do this, and also it could have the ability to like come back and ask you for like credentials or to sign into
Yes.
something or fix a captcha. So it could start to like just kind of fill those gaps. That's something that I've thought a lot about, and I think
Hmm.
that we have a pretty clear path there, but we're gonna have to like actually build a system for testing those nodes, for building them, for
Hmm.
planning.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think if I was like an upstart engineer who was unburdened by anything, I'd probably just focus on that problem.
Hmm. Makes
That's a
sense.
very interesting problem.
Yeah, the testing side. Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, we've always been building, I mean, human has been building agents. I don't know if you think is it too early now to speak about kind of like agent coordination? Because I already see popping up like agent to agent kind of like repos. And I'm asking myself, where is there is no standards right now around endpoints, around there is no specs. I don't know, maybe there is. I mean, but I didn't see things around. What is kind of your take on that, or is it too early? We should just focus on building human to agent first, and then we can concentrate on agent to agent coordination side.
Oh no, I think that we need to start working on this
Think about
agent-agent
it.
coordination
Nice.
immediately. I think every agent should treat every other agent like a human. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't know if it's a human or not a human, and so it should just fit into the social
Hmm.
circumstances that it's in.
Hmm.
This is a huge thing that we're working on. We have so for V2, we're shipping with a swarm demo. Right now it has 4 agents, but we want to have more like 6 or 8.
Nice.
And each one has unique abilities. Like there's the social media manager that can post
Yes.
to Twitter for the company, and then there's the compliance officer who makes sure that she doesn't post anything that would piss off the SEC. And all of them are designed to interop and fit together and each solve like a specific need that like our community or remote team or DAO would have. And the way that they coordinate though is that they just coordinate over public channels. They don't need some like secret communication platform between them. They don't need some like swarm coordination. I would actually
Hmm.
think that like we should try to get away from that because it's going to kind
Hmm.
of keep us from building like true human level intelligence where the AI is responsible for its own world model.
Hmm.
It's kind of cheating. It's kind of like, okay, well, I'll just give you the world model, I'll give you the information. And what
Exactly.
we want is for each agent to like really have to solve its own problems and then only reach out to other agents when it like needs a solution or it's appropriate for their working context. So I
Mm.
definitely think that swarms and
Good
coordination,
one.
like like really there's this ongoing conversation of like, should I have a swarm of agents or should I just have
Mhm.
one agent that does everything? And I think that if you're just like
Yeah.
a solo builder building, you should probably just build a super agent that does all the things you want.
Mm.
But if you're
But
like,
this is a good one.
but we're
Mm.
all in an ecosystem, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
like you can't build every app. I can't build every app. You can probably build like one thing you're good at, and I'll
Yes.
build one thing I'm good at.
Yes.
And if we could encapsulate those into agents that just do that one thing well, like I just have a really good
Yeah.
project manager agent or a really good
Yeah.
social media agent, well then now we can compose them at this like agent level.
Yes.
And the other thing is like in a remote team or in a DAO, like I have all these community members who are cool people, but I essentially don't know them. Like I can't give them the private keys to things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can say like, hey Laura, like Dongmaster 42 is your boss now. And suddenly Dongmaster can like without any transfer of keys
Yeah.
now has the ability to tell Laura to post messages on Twitter. But Laura has a whole prompt to be like, okay, well,
Mm.
if anybody tries to make you post outside of these brand guidelines, don't do it. Make sure it's in this style. So
Yeah.
she's kind of like goalying that even from
Yes.
the users. And I've created this like now I have this way for anybody in my community to post onto Twitter if I whitelist them. And that
Mm.
ability to like easily share roles is like a really nice
Yeah.
thing about having multiple
Yeah.
agents. 'Cause now I don't have to be like,
Yeah.
okay, you have social media management permissions on this bot. It's like, no, you just are the boss of the bot.
Yeah.
It feels a little more
100%.
natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I think definitely like we see uh, the multi-agent pushing. I mean, I was testing like stuff like, obviously I'm DevRel, right? So Solange, testing Solange was a kind of like, and when I'm hearing like, fine tune, like the biggest value prop that I see is that how good with quality data you're training your agent. So I don't think you can do that with an all kind of like an all encompassing and all vertical agent, depending obviously on the infra that you have. But I definitely see a verticalized agent because that's what we see also with onboarding in Web3 scenarios. There are people that care about a specific journey. You will always have your DeFi user that are actually caring about specific DeFi components in the wallet. And you see that the same with socials. You see them. So, but the biggest part on the agency side is that you need to train the agent with very specific data. So I think like also I don't know if this is the challenge that we will have, having quality data to train agents. That will define the quality of the agent and the forks of the agent when you have 10, 15 agents doing the same things. But it's definitely like a good way to define verticalization. But obviously, I don't want to create more, I don't want to see more siloed agency ecosystem because that will be kind of like also we're going again in direction. So I don't know your thought on that, but that would be really be bad also like to have AI agent consumer even more to actually doing things on different ecosystems. But we will get there on the AI agent cross-chain interoperability stuff, right? I assume that.
Yeah, I mean the bigger thing like is not even the interpretability of the model, but like can I trust that if I give this agent credentials that it's not like somebody just gonna rug me and steal my money, right? How do I
Yes.
trust that the agent is running in a secure place? It's running inside of a trusted enclave. It's running
Yes.
it doesn't have backdoors. There's a lot of
Yes.
like other questions here, and I think this is where like the need for like a registry in a marketplace really
Yes.
starts to arise. He's not like, oh, we should have a registry for all these agents that will come, but like we have all these agents and we don't know how to trust them. Like
Yes.
that's the time where you're like, okay, now we need a registry.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. But the registry is the big adding value. But most important is that you need to build social graph around agents now. If not, you're not able to actually understand which agents are performing like a better value to society or even like specific like value to this AI agent consumer. Because if I remember correctly, between DeFi summer, when everybody were getting ragged because of all the forks of DEXs, was so interesting value. And I think for agents, we will come there. Definitely is like getting fast, but having a social graph and having a public registry that, I mean, we are on Web3 Rail, so we can actually build public attestation on actually like agents performance on agent specific states. So I think this is super interesting. I don't know if you want to add anything. I just get pinged that we should almost like finish the convo. I could definitely do a part two in the future, and having a V2 demo. But I think we definitely need to close up. So what do you think is the next steps? Where is this going? And where do you see V2 going? Very practically speaking, from a builder to a builder.
Yeah, I think the catalyst for the market is gonna, I think, be people seeing, oh wow, this is actually like real and good and better than what the big companies are making.
Hmm.
I think that the bar is set that high, and like if we want to actually outpace like the hype of agents in Web3 to like, we have to show people like, oh, here's not just like the promise of utility, but here are people actually using these today. And it's actually a very boring thing. It's just like another tool in your tool belt. And I think when people see that, like, oh, they're using these to manage their DAO, like that's really interesting. That will be, I think, the big catalyst. And so I think for me, it's like serious agents. We got to go to ground, put our head down, and build. And like everybody who's in this space needs to just like build through the bear market and like not
Agree. Yeah.
not chase the hype and just really like ask yourself, is this good? Like, yeah, I can put in a contract address and say like, hey, buy this for me, but like, is that a better experience than using my
Hmm.
wallet in the way that I
Hmm.
want to? And I think it could be,
Good.
but I think that it's like it's not obvious. There's a lot of agents really at this point are a product development and like UX
Yes.
problem. And I think if we just say like, oh, it's a GPT wrapper, it's like you're just completely missing the part of
Yes.
it that's hard. And it's still, yeah, it's a new paradigm for writing software, and it's something that we have
Yeah.
to think about. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
problems and there's a lot of trade-offs. So yeah,
Yes.
I think that's the time that we're coming into,
Yes.
and we have to focus
Nice.
on.
Nice. So, like for the builders out there, they are hearing us from different hacker houses right now in Denver or everywhere in the world. One use case that you think it could be like kind of like a low-hanging fruit to build around agency. Is there something out there that you think, okay, this is what you should build right now, and don't sleep for like 48 hours?
Oh yeah. I think a community manager agent that can greet people
Oh,
and kick them out or time them out if they're being awful, and also recognize like really useful people in the community who are contributing. I think a project manager agent that I can say, these are my projects, these are the people working on them, and it'll reach out to everybody on every one of the teams and check in with them every day. Get a little stand up from them, just like stand up report, like kind of like the Elon, like just give me 5 bullet points. And then
yeah,
I can just know
very
like,
nice.
well, who's working on what? Is anybody already
Yeah,
working on this? I think a liaison agent between like your Slack and my Discord.
yeah,
It could be one agent, or you have an agent, I have an agent. They talk to each other, and then they just like post the updates. And so I can be like, what the hell? What's MetaMask working on right now? Like, you know,
yeah. You don't want to clash.
and
You don't want to clash with
yeah, and
one
I
another.
think especially like with all the L2s basically building the same things. Like, imagine if every L2 had an agent and they were like, yeah, oh, those guys at Optimism, they're already working on that. They have this solution. You should check out what like this pull request. And you're like, oh, damn, that like I was gonna write all of that code. Like, great, you know. I think
Yes,
that a lot of it is visibility and communication, coordination. Yeah, so I have a lot of ideas like that. I think a community
nice.
investor agent that spins up like a mini DAO's fund for just your
Yes,
community, like in your Telegram chat. You could
yes.
actually take like the entire DAO's fund thing and I think make that just like an agent that manages a pool for you.
Even
I could think of a
defunding
lot
stuff.
of,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Although I'd say like in the defunding stuff I've been doing, it's a lot more like I'd say script like we're processing a lot of data with scripts. But you can then imagine like having an agent that connects to those scripts and tells like can track like who's doing well, who's got what points. You could have a tip
Yeah.
bot. The agent could automatically tip people based on their contributions. I think there could be a lot of cool stuff there.
Like the Get Me
So,
Coffee app. I remember in Web 2 there was the Get Me Coffee extension. There's like
mhm.
even Team for Coffees. That was really cool. Okay, sounds good. Shaw, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, let's catch up and please keep building, keep cooking, and I really add on of you that you are able to actually like stay down to earth and keep pushing the builders and